Hi, my name is Dawn Jones, Communications Director for the City of Stillwater. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast today. We are with Police Chief Jeff Watts, and we are going to discuss Safe Home, Safe Community. Of course, my co-host is Melissa Reams.
Hi, everybody.
Our Deputy City Manager, our producer, Michelle Charles, and our videographer, who you can't see, is behind the camera, Eric Burrow. So thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This will be a great segment to talk about some things that are really important to our community.
Absolutely.
So let's just hit the ground running. And I'm going to ask this question. We live overall in a safe community, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. If you look back at over the statistical data for the last 4 to 5 years, not much has changed. You know, some certain crimes kind of ebb and flow. So you may have a year where you have more property theft than the year before, and then you may have a year where you have, more retail theft in our businesses and stuff. But it's always highs and lows, and it always kind of tends to center back out over time, and it doesn't seem to be a notable increase over a period of time of anything. So we may see something that kind of pops up and gets everybody's attention because it's more newsworthy, or we're doing a lot better job of getting that information out to the public and being a lot more transparent. Yeah. And sometimes that kind of makes people think, oh my gosh, we've had a really big raise in crime. But it has nothing to do with that at all. It's very, very normal for Stillwater, a city of 50,000 people with a lot of visitors coming and going. We're overall a very safe community.
Love that. And we are the regional hub for so many different things. So we have a lot of visitors that come in, and we want our visitors to come frequently. But overall, we definitely have a safe community. And just to touch on that, with the increase in transparency and communication efforts, kudos to you and your leadership for doing that and for leading that. We appreciate that. So some of the alerts and the releases that are being sent out, those are maybe to bring awareness to avoid an area and other things like that. What are some of those examples?
Yeah, so recently we brought on Lieutenant Lau within the last couple of years, and he's just been huge in our transparency and in our community outreach and being more open and providing a lot more information to the public. What we really strive to do is to make sure that our public stays informed what's going on, what we're doing. We want to be transparent. And I think Michelle had brought this up earlier, is that a lot of times when something starts to evolve in Stillwater and unravel, then people get on social media and they make a lot of assumptions, and they're listening to the scanner and they're only hearing bits and pieces, and then they're putting out a lot of inaccurate information, which causes a lot of our citizens to become really concerned about what's going on. And so we work very hard to get the correct and factual information out in a very timely manner so that they can have a source they can go to get the true information and not get sidetracked listening to people on social media who mean well but don't have all of the information. We have literally boots on the ground out front that know the accurate information and are feeding that back to Lieutenant Lau and to our communications department here at the city, and then we're pushing all that information out to make sure that we're giving accurate information. Sometimes I know there's a little bit of a delay in that. But it's the most important thing is the accuracy of the information, not how quick we can get it out. It doesn't do our public any good if we get something out and it's not accurate. However, we know that there's a balance there, and we want to make sure that we get it out timely but accurately.
Well, and there may also be a situation where it is, hey, we need you to avoid the area. We need to set the perimeter for an investigation or something like that. And so timeliness is important in so many different things, not only to get the information out, but also so the police can do what they need to do. Correct?
Absolutely. And probably the things that most often affect us being able to do our job safely and keep our community safer are large accidents that tie up, the roadway, especially major roadways, Perkins Road and Highway 51 and some of the other areas of town where we see a lot of traffic especially during the end of the day and the beginning of the day. We want to make sure that the public knows, hey, this area is blocked. Or it's going to be down for several hours. And when we get all that information out there, we're hoping that people are listening so that they can take alternate routes and avoid the areas. It makes it safer for the first responders who are there, providing medical aid to the police officers there who are working the scene. And so we try to get that out quickly And also, we want our public to be that first source of information they go to, so that
Absolutely.
they know what's going on and they know accurately what we're trying to do, and then they can make their decisions as far as, hey, where do I need to go to not get caught up in this? And it's a busy town, so we want to make sure that we get that out quickly.
But the timing of those announcements can be critical too, can't they, to apprehending the bad guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we have a crime going on, for example,
Right.
and we've got some person who has fled from the police or committed a crime and is on the move, we want to get that information out there, because we'll have officers out there, but every citizen who knows what's going on and has that information is another set of eyes that can call 911.
Well, and from the flip side, though, doesn't that give the offender maybe a head start or a jump on you if they know in a less strategic way where you are going to be? They may get out and get away from you. So there is a timing here and a strategy to how you release the information, isn't there?
Yeah, on certain types of events, anytime we have a situation where maybe we have a barricaded person or we have a violent offender that we have contained in a certain area, we're going to want to hold that information close to us, because we don't want them knowing where our officers are. We don't want to put them in undue risk, obviously. And so, yeah, that's a good point, that we would also, we use it for both directions, and sometimes we want to wait till an event is under control before we start putting information out, because we don't want people, unfortunately, you have people who say, hey, there's a major event going on and a lot of excitement, we want to go see.
Yeah.
And so bringing a lot of unnecessary people into the scene of an active event can create danger for everybody involved.
Right.
Exactly, because then our police force becomes responsible not only for our officers, but then for the looky-loos that are there that are in harm's way, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it takes their attention away from what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
If
right.
you're looking for somebody who's committed a violent crime, and you have to turn all of your attention to all this traffic that is now backing up, and people are honking and trying to drive around each other, and
Can also cause problems for your other emergency responders that you need to get in there and help.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Scenes of fires are really
Oh,
good
bad.
example
Yeah.
of that, where we've got, the hoses all across the roadway, and you have people that drive up and drive over, the fire hose. Well, it's
Right.
kind of an important.
I even
We
had a
need
hard
that.
time driving over the hose at the Sonic the other day because I knew that would shut his water off. But I hope that gives our viewers some perspective of, it's not that we're trying to withhold information from the public, but our public safety people are trying to balance their job with this need for transparency. And the two things don't always marry up in the exact timing that the public might like for them to.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard for people to understand. We want to make sure that information is accurate. And so a really good example of that was the recent call of the hoax of an active shooter at one of the schools.
Yes.
Well, if we immediately started blasting out active shooter at the school, just imagine what kind of chaos and panic that would have caused. I mean, it could have been catastrophic. People having high-speed accidents trying to get to a school
there,
where
to
their
their
loved ones
kids.
are at. You have people rushing in thinking they're going to help, and it was a hoax. So we want to make sure that, like in those situations, that we get the facts.
Right.
And then we put it out. Yeah, and so, you could look at that and say, well, why didn't we get that information immediately? Well, because it wasn't confirmed yet.
Right.
And we want to make sure that we're getting accurate information out there, so that when a person hears, hey, they had an active shooter call, but it was a hoax, that makes it a lot better than we have an active shooter call. We'll give you more information.
Right. Just very strategic on the message and the timing of it.
Absolutely.
Well, and another thing that comes up a lot of times is identifications. People will be wanting to know who was involved in an accident, if somebody's seriously hurt, what happened in the accident. And a lot of times y'all are still investigating that. And you have people who need to be notified before the general public starts learning
that's a
these
fact.
things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point, because we have had fatality accidents before where the family found out from social media
Oh, gosh.
that their loved one had been killed in an accident. And that, we never want that,
No.
and if that information is getting put out there before we have a chance to get to the family and bring in support personnel, and it's a tragic moment in their lives, and we need to do everything we can and call in all our resources to to help with that. But just imagine if they misidentify the person,
That's right.
you
That
know,
would be horrible.
because the accurate information wasn't put out there, and then you've got somebody getting that death notification by social media, and it turned out it was the wrong
And just
person.
imagine if it is your family members, your loved one, your friend. So we always have to view it from that perspective too. So the information going out, the increased information, we still live in a safe community. But when the information is released, we want to make sure it's accurate and timely with what you guys are dealing with
Absolutely.
so that you can do your job.
Yeah, and if we back up and, we kind of
Right.
just initially start talking about how our community safety and whether or
Yes.
not it has changed. And, every year you just have things, different trends, and we work through those. But we sit down every year, we go through our public safety stats for the year, and we look at what we had last year, what do we have this year, and we adjust to that.
Right.
If we're seeing an increase in theft in neighborhoods, and we up our patrols there.
Right.
We're seeing an increase in crashes because people running red lights, and we focus more on traffic. If we see an increase in drunk driving accidents, then we focus there. So we are constantly responding to what is happening in our community to make it safer. And then next year we look as we go throughout the year, and as those stats change and we see rises and
Right.
ebbs and flows, we are constantly responding to that. And so we try to keep that information, and we try to get that information out to the public. So, hey, avoid this area. Hey, we're having this problem. This is an issue we're dealing with. And sometimes it can appear as, oh my gosh, where did all this come from? We never had this before. Well, we never had a dedicated public information officer, and now we do. So we're being a lot more transparent, putting out a lot more information. And now that we have the communications department that we work hand in hand with, we have 2 to 3 times as many resources pushing
Yeah.
that information out. Where before we had, a Captain Gibbs, that was a double duty for him.
Yeah.
He had his day job, and then when he could, he
was
tried to
doing
get
when
the
he-
information out. But when you have somebody dedicated to that, you're going to get a lot
Hey,
more information.
teamwork makes the dream work.
It does.
But kudos to your leadership and
thank
to Melissa's leadership and Norman's for allowing us to do this and trusting the vision and leading and being innovative with all of this. Kudos to you. Just from my standpoint, this is something we've been building for a while, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate it. And I know that our community does, with the increased transparency and information. And not only that, you have some of the best men and women serving for you in your police force. You really do.
I'm very proud of the work they do. It's almost daily that as the chief, I get what we call end of shift briefings. So I kind of get the highlights that went on that shift, not everything, but kind of the more notable things. And it's just amazes me how often our folks go above and beyond what we
Right.
ask of them.
Yeah.
And they do things that, even we don't put out to the general public. It just becomes so common for them to do really amazing things that it almost seems the norm. And so it gets harder and harder for it to
Exactly.
to really kind of surprise you, because that's just the norm thing.
That's who they are as people.
Changing a tire on somebody's car in 105-degree weather, that's the norm.
Buying a
You know,
bicycle.
Buying a
Buying a
bicycle
bicycle.
for a kid who got his stuff stolen.
Yeah.
Those officers, they don't do it for the recognition.
No.
They do it because they're a part of this community, and their heart calls them to serve their fellow man. And so they go above and beyond because that's what they're meant to do.
Yes.
I think that's one thing that people kind of forget a lot of times when they're look at the different institutions that serve them. When you look at people who work in city government, when you look at people who work in law enforcement, the fire department, the various agencies, whether they're people you enjoy interacting with or not, whether it's always a great circumstance when you have to come in contact with them. These are people who live in your community. These are people who have lives and families here.
Yep.
Yeah.
And who have an investment
Yeah,
in this place where we all live. And
Yeah.
I think it helps to remember that.
Sure.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about that earlier. I was talking with some other folks in the city, and I've got my kids play sports, and so we're at the baseball games, we're at the football games, we're on the sidelines, we're just everyday people like you and me. We're just all the same, but we're all in this together. We just have the honor of being able to provide an additional service to the city. That's our full-time job. Is taking care of our community, where other folks, they have a full-time job and then they get to help with the community during their off time. Ours is all the time.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and So let's talk just a little bit about some of the great collaboration that you have with other safety entities. This is a teamwork makes the dream work for Stillwater and Payne County overall.
Yeah, so the one thing that I will say is, in 2015, I went to the FBI's National Academy, and just kind of a quick overview of what that is that's leaders get selected from around the world. Any nation that is friendly with America gets an opportunity to send law enforcement personnel to the FBI National Academy, and it's a leadership training program that's about 11 weeks long. So you're in Quantico, Virginia for 11 weeks at the FBI's headquarters down there training. So
That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. But your class is made up of 250 to 275 leaders from all throughout the world. So you meet people from everywhere from New York City to Australia, England, just all over the world. And you get to talk about public safety and interaction with other public safety. And the one thing that I find over and over and over again, that we are an extremely rare community. Very few communities do all of the law enforcement and public safety entities all work so well.
Yeah.
Usually there's some kind of strife between the fire department and the police department, or the police department and the sheriff's
Right.
department, or the law enforcement, the local law enforcement, and maybe like OSU or some kind of college. That is not the case here. And so when we start talking about how our collaboration it really kind of surprised people. I was talking to all these agencies, and they're like, "So y'all get along well with the highway patrol and the sheriff's office and the local, college
Yeah.
police and the fire department," and just the list goes on. Like, yeah, we don't have a negative relationship with any of our public safety partners.
Right.
We all have the same goals. I was
Yeah.
sitting down with the sheriff this morning, and we were talking about collaborating on a variety of different topics. And that's how we do. We're just like, we're friends and we're coworkers, and we all pull together for the same mission.
That's right. Well, and it's pretty great that you guys do that. And I have been fortunate enough to sit in some of those meetings, and I'm just in awe of the collaboration and how you all work together to mitigate potential risk, whether we're talking about homecoming walk around and parade to other large events, Special Olympics, to holiday parade, and just all of the things.
Yeah,
So-
I think walk around is probably our biggest showcase of public safety working together. If you know,
Absolutely.
when you come down to the command post, you see every public safety entity in this area all working together, and they're not just working side by side; they're working together.
Yeah.
You have the sheriff's department teamed up
Right.
with Stillwater, and you have the fire department. I mean, we're just because we all have that same goal, that same mentality.
That's right.
This is our community, and we all pull together. We can provide a better service.
Well, in Stillwater too. I mean, we're a small city,
Mhm.
but our population effectively doubles quite a few times a year. So, I mean, it's got to take everybody just to respond to something like that. I would think you all would have to work very closely together in a situation like that. I mean, what do you have to do to prepare for that type of a thing? Not every community has to do that.
Yeah, and it is kind of a unique situation because we're big enough to have big city problems, but maybe small enough that we need help from other entities to handle when bigger things blow. And it's the same with the sheriff's office. And so we work together all the time to make sure that we're prepared to respond to any type of event and support each other. And the same with the fire department, the same with OSU. We have in our current radio system, and we're getting ready to upgrade. And now that the sheriff's office looks like they're moving forward with that same radio system, it will make things 10 times better because now we can all literally go to one channel, and all of us. I can talk to a deputy. I can talk to somebody
that.
from any agency that is on that system and has that working power. We can leverage all that together. There is no more, hey, I need you to call your people and tell them this.
Right.
I need you to call your folks and tell them this.
You'll
And-
have the tools to do
yeah,
your job.
literally, we turn it over and I can talk to
That's
all of
right.
them. Yeah, it's
Right.
just this is probably one of the biggest leaps forward
That's right.
in public safety in my 31 years here.
Love it.
So no
Well-
more juggling radios and using cell phones and
Right.
Or
to try to talk
not
to
even
everybody.
being able to talk to,
Not being
because
able to
there's
talk to
buildings you can't.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And there's
penetrate.
times that the radios aren't able to interface
Right.
with each other.
Yeah.
We were out on a manhunt recently and there was a glitch and the county radio was overriding our public
Oh,
safety
my goodness.
radio of the SWAT team guys. And it took us a while to work it out because again, we're working on all these different systems. We're trying to make them work together. And you know, you can only put so many plugins in one socket
right.
before something has to get unplugged and something else has to get plugged in.
Well,
sense.
so just to sum it up real quick, because we're running out of time, but I do want to touch on this. The emergency, if you have a non-emergency, instead of, see something, say something. If you have a non-emergency, you have a question about something, feel free to contact 405-372-4171. For emergency, still the same old, what we've all learned when we were little, call 911. But a new feature is
Yeah, the text to 911. And
There
so
you
that
go.
has been around for a little while. It's been around for about 2 years now. But you could text 911 and it will connect you with a dispatch operator via text, and they can type right back to you. But nothing beats being on the phone where they can ask
Right.
questions and all that. But you may not be able to.
Yeah,
You may be in a
right.
situation to where you're fearful for your safety and you're trying to remain hidden or remain silent, and so you can send and text and just converse that way. Or maybe you can't call because it's too loud, too much crowd noise or something, and you need to get that information out. Just text to 911, and then you'll get an immediate response.
those are great examples.
Yeah.
Well, we could go on, and we need to have him back.
I think so too, because there's so many things that we didn't talk about today, initiatives that our public safety and our
Yes.
first responders have enacted that do make Stillwater such a safe community.
Okay, so you have to come back.
Yeah,
Okay.
You have to
absolutely.
come back and join us, because
All right.
I
I'll be
feel like we
looking
were
forward
like
to the invite.
speeding and we didn't, there's so many other things.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Chief Watts, for
yeah.
all that you do. Thank you for being here with us. And thank you all for joining us today. And just remember, together, we are investing in municipal excellence. Thanks again.